Belleville Area District Library meeting will come to order, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So who wants to take the vote? Joy? This right here.
Tabor is absent and excused. I'm here. Dawson.
Here.
Steve Scruggs.
Here.
Rita.
Present.
Peters.
Here.
Stoudemire.
Here. Well, look at that. Do we need to get the buckets out?
Go get the umbrellas.
Yeah, if the meeting has to be interrupted, if they come in and tell us we can work but other than that, let's go on to our agenda. Accept motion on approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Dorita and seconded by Dawson to approve the agenda. Is there any discussion? Are there any changes or corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? So the agenda is approved. And then the June 13th board meeting minutes, which you received in your packets and are online in advance. Everybody looked them over. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Driga and supported by Hughes Clubs. You were here that day. All those in favor? Are there any women, any comments? I want to make sure that everybody has gone through well. Here now. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by saying no. And then the minutes are approved with no dissenting votes. And now it's time for public comment. And we have some of the public here. Anybody want to make a comment? Then we will move to the probably biggest item on our agenda, our biggest discussion item, which is committee reports. The building committee, which has been active, and I'll refer to Joy, and I think all of us will participate.
Well, we had just one meeting, but we did a lot of stuff in that meeting.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of work that's been done outside of that meeting to make some adjustments to floor plan and some other adjustments, including a basement, which we want to bring, a small basement we want to bring before the whole board. And I'm going to let Dan talk about the major issues.
Sure. So in your board packet is our latest floor plans that actually this is the outcome of our last building committee meeting. So we canceled our building committee meeting last Thursday, so the building committee hasn't fully seen these yet, but this reflects what they had discussed. And so I think based on our discussions, these plans pretty much represent where we want to be with the schematic design. So I think we're all feeling pretty good about it. To most casual observers, the plan looks very similar to what we presented to the community back in November for the bond issue. But there's been some significant changes as far as the internal space planning goes as a response to the detailed building program that we developed and worked closely with Mary Jo and Hillary on. And part of that is we, trying to balance sort of the first floor square footage versus the second floor square footage, and as Joy mentioned, we're suggesting to include a small basement that's basically 2 column bays, so fairly small relative to the overall building footprint. But it seems to do a lot of things from a positive standpoint, from a functional standpoint, and I'll kind of get into that briefly. But just to give you a quick, very brief overview of some of the major changes on the plan. Like I said, most people would recognize it as not very changed, but there are a few key changes. We've shifted in the meeting room to how we subdivide the meeting room with the operable partition. So the larger portion of the subdivided room is closer to the front door. We've changed how the storage works, so we have more storage than what the original plan was showing. In the popular area where we had the fireplace, this is down through here, we've reoriented that and we've moved which wall the fireplace is on so we could actually increase storage for the meeting room. We actually had a little bit extra space in where we have the audio-visual items in terms of the media and the large print. And so we've actually added a conference room that will seat 10 people. So it's a large conference room that really wasn't in the program, but we saw it as an opportunity to capture that space and provide another meeting space that I'm sure will be in high demand. So we've located it there. Next to the children's story room. We've also modified kind of the boundary between the children's area and the staff space, so that wall is slightly different and where we have the grade school collection. In the earlier plan, we were actually showing more shelving than what the program was really calling for, so we were able to kind of capture that space and reconfigure the staff space. And the big change that is contemplated here back in the staff area is we've actually brought the administrative suite from the second floor down to the first floor. So Hillary and Mary Jo's office and their administrative support staff would be now located on the first floor, along with a good majority of the circulation and tech services staff. So we're kind of bringing more people together and fewer staff located on the second floor. The way we did that is by, well, I'll come back to that. The way we did that is by moving some things that were on the first floor that are more building support space into a basement. And I'll show you that on the next one. We've also reconfigured the overall staff space, but that's not as, that's just sort of moving things around. Any questions on the first floor? I
want to point out too that we made the Friends regular bookshelf more obvious, I would say.
When we doubled the number of shelves that are available for sort of daily sales. So right now the library in the front entry we have 4 units of shelving for Friends. Now we're looking at having 8. That's accessible all hours that the library's open. And part of the strategy for the basement is to further expand space for Friends. So we'll talk more about that.
And then we also added a small a door to the little garden, the children's garden.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yes. So we're creating a space where you can actually go out into that small garden. As more for individuals, a couple of park bench kind of setups where adult could go out there with a child and maybe read outdoors, and that also creates an added exit out of the youth area. And the other thing we added, it's sort of in conjunction with the reconfiguration of staff space. Again, we had the space for it. It's not in the program, but we added a small tutoring room that is accessed off of the children's area. We didn't have that in the program, and it's something that's really in high demand. So all of our group study spaces are located on the second floor. So this gives us a good place to do tutoring for the youth area. And then we added a small staff-only conferencing space. And we kind of did that to create a more multi-purpose shared conferencing space for all staff, rather than kind of giving the director's office a larger office with a small conference table within the office. So that was a bit of a enhancement. Any other questions on first floor?
Question.
Yeah.
I see like a very small tutoring room.
Yes.
Is that, I mean, you think that's necessary, or is there another area where we also do tutoring?
Well, we can do tutoring upstairs in any of the small two-place tutoring rooms and group study rooms. And particularly for, I think, adult tutoring, we would see that going up, happening up there. But for grade school or sort of more grade school or tween kind of tutoring, I could possibly see them using this first floor space for that as an option. It's just giving people an option of having.
But it should be a door that stays locked unless it's being used. Because it's kind of invisible.
And
Yeah, it is so hidden.
Yeah.
well, and it'll have glass, and so we have sight lines into it. But yeah, that's definitely.
I do have one question. What is that little, in the youth area, what is the,
That little square.
that little dotted square by
my
the
question.
children's area?
Those are really just placeholders. So there's three sort of squares. We imagine those might be. We might have like a Brio train table, Lego tables, and any kind of manipulables. And that sort of dashed outline around there is just sort of a zone of floor space.
So a toy,
So
early learning toy.
it could be right or thematic. So we might have a puppet stage. So we'll flesh out what that.
So that's not a room.
It's not. No, it's not a room. It's really just it's a zone.
A zone.
And that's kind of the young child zone of the children's library. So it's really more meant to have floor space where kids can kind of be on the floor and doing whatever kids are going to do. And then there's a chair and a half that's sort of in that close proximity, kind of like a wider lounge seat where an adult and a child can sit together and read. So that's what we're showing.
In the youth area, those looks like computer stations.
Yeah.
Are they permanent fixtures?
They're movable furniture, but any desktop computer is going to be plugged in.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't expect them to really move around a lot, but it's loose furniture.
My philosophy is that in the next 20 years, libraries' personality may change a great deal. I was talking to my son who works for Google and his husband who worked for Google. The entire corporation, which deals with about 50,000 people, everything they own is on wheels.
Mm-hmm.
They can move the entire office and move in a workshop.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a cool concept because we have a lot of, book cabinets and stuff like this, that the reading habits of people may change in 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Can we be flexible enough to adapt? And this is where I'm coming from.
Sure. I mean, we in the Ferndale Library 7 years ago, we put in like all of their popular, I think, browsing new book shelving. I think is all on casters, so it could literally be moved around and reconfigured if they wanted to. So we can do that. We can certainly put casters on like computer workstations. You reach a point where is it really? We can certainly do that, but and we can easily have wireless internet access, but no one's yet invented wireless power. So there's always going to be a need to plug in. So that limits your flexibility somewhat.
George?
Are you contracted to specify the furniture also?
Yes.
Good.
So we'll coordinate all of that closely.
Yeah, good.
On that,
Sometimes you don't.
Right.
what are those two circles by the janitor's closet? There's two circles.
Those are electric water coolers, drinking fountains.
Oh, on the first floor behind.
Yeah, right next to
behind
kind
the
of
restrooms near the janitor's closet.
Right.
Okay.
the little alcove space outside of the toilet.
So it's like water
Drinking
fountain.
Yeah. And we're moving more to as a kind of a standard. Not only provide by code, you have to have a high-low. So one that's low enough for a wheelchair user and one that's high enough to people who can't bend over. But we're also moving towards specifying bottle fill as becoming a real trend, and something that people like to see. So an option so you can refill your water bottle without having to use the drinking fountain for that.
And
Mhm.
we have like the toilet room versus a restroom. What's the difference?
Family
That's a
bathroom.
family.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no main difference. That in the youth area specifically, we'll have a family restroom, which is really just a single occupancy toilet, a little bit larger, so we have a little bit more space for changing tables and maybe something that's more of a built-in changing table. Then what every restroom in the building will have a changing table. Oftentimes it's a flip down like you'd see in a commercial building. But in that, we always usually provide a dedicated family restroom in the children's area so kids don't have to travel too far. And then we do have a dedicated staff restroom in the back area that's back towards the staff lounge.
All these restrooms have low volume of water usage.
Yeah, that's our standard. You can do waterless urinals. Our preference and recommendation is to do sort of super low flow urinals. They're like 1/8 gallon, so you get a little bit of flushing. But
1/8?
1/8 gallon, yeah. And we've found that if you're in a high use area or if you have a cleaning staff that's cleaning the plumbing fixtures every night, the waterless urinals work perfectly fine. But if you don't, then you can have odors. So
I talk to restaurant owners, and that's the only problem. They've got to put bleach in there every day, which is a.
So the 1/8 gallon gives you just enough flush to kind of rinse.
Yes.
So, yeah. But all the toilets will be low flow, so we're being mindful of water.
This is good because the price of water in Belleville is very expensive.
You got a lake out there, just.
Clean the toilet from the lake.
Any other questions on first floor? Okay, moving to second floor. Probably the couple of the major changes that we have here is our teen area. It's still in the location that we had it, but the teen area was undersized from the program, and so we've expanded the teen area further towards I'm going to call it north, towards the top of the page. And we moved where local history was and some group study, so we've actually pulled that wall back. And so that created a major change. The other major change with the teen area as well is we had 2 openings in the floor. So we have this opening where it's a balcony condition, you could look down to the first floor with a skylight above it. We actually had a second one here, and we've eliminated that and filled that floor in, and instead have located a bunch of group study and tutoring rooms that would all be very glassy. So think of them as literally those glass boxes that staff can see through. And so we found a couple of things. One, as kids kind of walk down to their space on the first floor, their voices won't carry so much up to the second floor. And the placement of those group study rooms now creates a very nice acoustical buffer between the teen area and the adult seating. So we're using the placement of the group study rooms to help kind of buffer and shelter. We talked about physically enclosing the teen area from a noise standpoint. We still could do that, but this strategy that we've employed here goes a long way to helping us kind of give teens their space without and some separation from the adults. So that works, I think, very well. And then you can see where we have the adult stacks. We have the nonfiction stacks towards the south along Charles Street, and we have the fiction stacks along the west side on Royce Street. And both of those, we had to balance the amount of shelving we had to provide. And so those are some of the major changes that we've created. We're actually showing, again, I think one more group study room or tutoring room than what was programmed. And then we've sort of downsized the staff space that's on this floor because we were able to move the admin staff to the first floor. So now we really just have on this floor, we have the adult librarian staff and the IT staff. And we thought we'd keep IT staff up on this floor because the majority of their work is going to be dealing with the adult computers. So that puts them in close proximity to really where they're having to provide their most activity. And then we brought the quiet study room as well as the local history room. We brought those inboard, so they're kind of in the middle of the plan. There was some concerns expressed by the building committee about having the local history room on an outside wall where we may have natural light that for any, we'll have high performance glass, but you still get a little bit of UV that could over many, many years might degrade any kind of historical documents that we might have in the library. So that's the major change. We also added, kind of reconfigured based on some feedback from the one of the library's cooperative. We've added a data closet or more or less a server room, both on the first floor and the second floor. So we have large dedicated space for data racks on both floors, and kind of reconfigured our toilet rooms up in that upper corner, and also included a we'll call it a family restroom on this floor as well. So if you have if you're assisting somebody, you have basically a single occupancy toilet to use on the second floor as well.
On the second floor, all the way to the top of the drawing to the left, it says janitor's closet.
Yes.
And there's a staircase right next to it.
Yes.
That space where there's a landing, isn't that a negative area below the landing where it could be used for storage or something? It's an area 6 by 5. Yeah.
This area?
Yeah. According to your scale, anyway.
Well, no, that's that landing's going to be probably 8 feet by 5 feet. Is that wasted space? Well, as you go down.
You're going from the first floor to the second floor.
That's a receiving room.
Yeah, the stair is scissor backing on itself. So as you go down half the floor height.
Yeah.
To that landing. So.
But still, that's a negative area, isn't it? Can it not be used for, even if it's not full 8 feet tall? Could it be used for something?
What would you store there?
Same thing as right next to the janitor's closet. Just eliminate that wall. Put a door there.
Technically you can, but it becomes a little bit more complicated to do that because the stair enclosure is going to be fire rated, and so because part of life safety is when you get in there, you want to have it be sort of a smoke-free environment as you're trying to exit out of the building if there's a fire. So when you start building and sort of projecting into that vertical enclosure, it complicates how you can maintain that fire rating. Technically it could be done, but at what benefit? So I'm not sure that there's a huge benefit to try to capture that space. I think what you're saying is you could extend the...
Could be just left open? No, it can't. Okay.
No, you can't use... You cannot put any... The fire stair can only be used for exiting. There cannot be any door opening onto that fire stair other than what you need to pass through to exit. So we can't have a closet off of that stairwell.
Okay.
That stairwell.
I want to mention two things too. That both the two sides of the building where there's possible vegetative roof, on the side where the teen zone is, that will be, we had to cut part of that vegetative roof down to make room for the teen zone, right?
Well, actually we just changed it. So before this wall was here, and this wall was actually out here.
Okay.
So the amount of roof area there is unchanged. It's become more squarish than rectangular.
Instead of a long
And in our budgeting, we did not budget for vegetative roofs. It's in the back of our minds. It would sure be nice if we could somehow find a way to include that in the project. But we have the potential of a vegetative roof here, we have a potential of it here, and we have a potential of it as you're kind of going down the circular stair, as well as a small spot of green on the outdoor terrace. So we actually have 4 potential areas where that would be a benefit. There are functional benefits by doing a vegetative roof because it will help reduce our stormwater runoff from the building. There's obviously a cost to it, but more importantly, we have all these occupied spaces that look out onto that basically first floor roof. And so it would be a vegetative roof would make it far more attractive than looking out on a roof. So those are things for us to be thinking about.
Last weekend, I was on a trip and then met my daughter-in-law's cousin, who works for the Department of Environmental Quality. She works for the Water Division. I told her about the library and the vegetative roof. She was quite excited. And she said there may be money out there. And primarily the people in Washington County are doing a lot of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So she would reach out and try to find information for me.
Sure.
So,
I'm not aware of any grants for that, but
yeah.
if
Well,
she
she liked
has
the concept of
yeah.
using that water.
And
Yeah.
then I also want to mention that both of those roofs are gonna be able to be weight bearing if we need to expand. They're easy places to expand.
Now that for sure.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's not something.
Vegetative roof or no?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I think that's just good future planning. So the foundations of those 2 areas that are only planned to be 1 story, and probably also the outdoor terrace.
Okay.
We'll design the foundations to where they can support a second floor library loading and the steel structure. That changes a little bit how we detail the roof, but essentially I think that's those are not large areas. So this is literally 900 square feet, and this is also another 900 square feet, another place 900 square feet. So those wouldn't solve major future expansion problems. And to do a 900 square foot addition on the building would be pretty costly per square foot, but it's I think it's the logical thing to do. So if you ever got 10, 15, 20, 30 years down the road, said we could really benefit by bumping that wall out, we'll have set up the building to where it can be done fairly reasonably. So that's just good.
I think you left an elevator out of here.
An elevator?
Yeah, there's one here, and there's one here.
The shaft space. That's not an elevator. That's mechanical
That's
shaft.
not an elevator?
No, we only have a single elevator that's
We
there.
only have one.
Yeah,
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Just
Same.
gonna ask, is there gonna be a sprinkler system installed in the building for?
we'll have a fire suppression sprinkler system inside for reducing fires. We may have a lawn irrigation system on the outside for plants. That's, I think, sort of to be determined. But building
Sure, we're
code
talking
requires
about
our building to have fire sprinklers. Okay?
Are any of the walls in the study group area like partition walls, or are they all solid walls?
In this area down here,
With a little glass.
my vision there is they would all be glass. All walls would be glass, so you could see through. What we've done at a number of projects is there'll be mullions, so you'll divide it. Won't be one solid piece of glass, but there'll be vertical and horizontal dividers. And oftentimes, what we'll do is we'll take a section of that glass and we'll actually put in white laminated glass that actually acts as a marker board. And so you can take like a magic marker and write on the glass, and then that also provides a little bit of visual privacy from the occupants of one room sitting there looking at people in the other room. But we do that in select areas to where library staff can kind of still see through, see if people are sitting upright or what they're doing. And kind of
Could be
keep
all-
Because they're not
Could they
sitting
go
on
to
each
the
other's
ceiling?
laps.
Yeah.
Yes, they'll all go to the ceiling.
Or other kinds
It's
of
happened.
things.
They'll all be
Libraries are
enclosed.
so multi-use.
Right.
But I think that is a good idea. to
She
be,
was thinking
a
about
sliding.
Not just
more
because I have
rooms.
because I have a big family, so, you know, a 4-person room would be small, you know, back in the day.
Yeah, you would have to
It's
do
doing this,
one of the conference room on the first floor or the second floor conference room.
Yeah.
I know Ferndale had, seemed like some kind of glass door that they could open up their computers.
The computer lab, yeah. We could also do sliding glass doors on those rooms, and you avoid particularly for the small rooms. It's kind of nice, and you don't have to
Then you
deal
don't
with
have the swing.
the swing in the way. A little bit more expensive, but and that's kind of a big trend now in sort of office design to have sliding glass doors on your office.
I think Plymouth does.
Hmm?
Plymouth has that on their wall, their study rooms. So they have all glass, and it's the whole wall facing the staff is,
Yeah.
the reference desk is glass, and they slide.
Yeah. There's different ways we can do this. I mean, they do make glass partitions that are demountable and reconfigurable, so you could change it around without it being sort of, it's not just a drywall and glass. You spend a little bit more for that, but it gives you sort of the flexibility of maybe being able to reconfigure things differently down the road. And that we can sort of explore that. I'm not sure in this configuration, because I think we will appreciate the fact that those rooms help segregate the teen space from the rest of the library. I don't know that we would necessarily do away with those down the road.
Well, I think the sliding glass door should also be on the teen space.
Oh, you're saying
Well,
so that you could close it?
Well, there might be a need for some glass doors there.
Actually, at the Commerce Township Library, we put in a double automatic sliding door that segregates the children's area from the rest of the library. Just like you'd see as you're walking into the grocery store or whatever, or Target or something like that. I think it's working well. I was a little bit skeptical, but the youth librarian advocated for it, so
Probably makes the whole library quieter.
I think it does. I was a little bit concerned that it might be a nuisance, because every time somebody walking by it, it's going to go,
Oh, yeah.
because we
No,
didn't have the
automatic.
space, right? So.
I wanted to revisit George Craven's question about the thing that looks like an elevator, but it's not. It's got
Big exit?
yeah, it's got the dotted line.
Yeah.
What is it?
We have one at each stairwell.
Yeah.
That's a vertical shaft that we're going to be able to bring mechanical ductwork down from the roof. So part of our downsizing of the building was to sort of make the commitment that we were not going to provide a major internal mechanical room for mechanical HVAC equipment, and instead we're going to put that equipment up on the roof. And so that saved us square footage.
Question.
Right. That saved us floor area to house equipment, but now we have to, in
Be
either
able to
case, we
get
have
stuff up there.
Yeah. So,
So
we're actually meeting this week with our engineering consultants and kind of just go through and make sure that they're comfortable with how much shaft space we're giving them and all those sorts of things.
So that will be used initially, and then likely only in case of replacement of something major.
Nope, the shaft space will always be there.
I mean,
because we have to.
but you won't be taking things up and down it very much.
No, it's just a thick wall that the actually mechanical ductwork is going to be enclosed inside. Nothing
With the
moves.
central heating and air conditioning.
Oh, the duct.
It's
Yeah.
it's so we can get. It's basically so we can serve the first floor ceiling space, the first floor rooms, from equipment that's mounted on the roof. So we have to get the air from the roof all the way down to the first floor. That's what those shafts are for.
One more question before we go to the other one. So in the teen zone, is that a new bump out?
No, that's always been there. We always had a little bay window kind of projecting out there. We have eliminated the sort of, we had a more formal fireplace chimney that was on the parking lot side, and since we moved the since we moved the fireplace, we're working on how we change the exterior to respond to these things. But I think what it means is we probably won't have that traditional shaft of a brick chimney going up the building. We'll just not sort of express the fireplace on the outside of the building. So then we've added, for the most part, we're on program as far as seating. We were able to add a couple of 4-place tables in the fiction area where you saw that. So again, it gives us a diversity of seating. So we have some, opportunity for adults to sit next to the balcony condition if they're open to sort of want to look down and see people and be seen. Or there's some quieter spaces throughout the plan that they can escape to.
Remember we went to that one library and they had a stairway going up and the lighting was impossible to replace?
Yes, we're going to do that.
And then we're going to say John Drury whenever the light
Bigwood
goes
Road has a
out.
bunch of
Let's
those
call
lights.
John.
Yeah,
We addressed that then,
We're
right?
not going to do
Was that
Um,
the library you were talking
was it.
We certainly are going to be mindful of those things. We do.
as will I.
Yeah. So we
It's like I don't have to go on the roof anymore, but I have to go on these 50
technology has evolved and has helped some of that. So at Commerce, we have a couple of areas. Well, we have one area where we have a very tall ceiling, and there's clear story windows up high, and so it's a ceiling that's probably 24 feet above the floor. We put downlights in the ceiling that 10 years ago I wouldn't have done because of having to get up there and relamp it.
Mm-hmm.
When we're dealing with fluorescent lamps, like what we have here, you would have to relamp those probably once a year and get up on a ladder or some kind of lift to get up there and do it. But now all the lighting that we're putting in the buildings are LED,
Mm-hmm.
and you're maybe going to have to deal with that maybe once every 10 years. So it's really not as significant of an issue. You still need to be mindful. They can come in once every 10 years with a lift and change them all out. At that point, you may be replacing the fixture because the LED fixture is almost disposable. But we still need to be mindful about locating fixtures like over stairwells, like stairs where you can't get a piece of equipment or a lift in there easily to be able to change up the fixtures. So we don't want to get to the point where you have to build scaffolding just to change a light bulb. So we still have to be mindful about these things, even with LEDs.
How many librarians does it take to change a light?
Yeah. But we are not only, we used to also be very mindful, John, about how many different, because there's all kinds of different light fixtures in the library. We used to be very mindful about how many different lamps, because fixtures take different types of lamps, and so how many do you have to stockpile when you do have to replace a light bulb? So
We want to keep this simple.
right.
Interesting scenario. Mary Jo and I have been having this discussion for quite a while now. A $10 million building, you think we need a full-time custodian?
For most libraries that are going to be dealing with a building that size, I think would have a full-time custodian. Yes.
Not retirees?
Oh well, I think most libraries that are going to deal with a building that size is going to have somebody on staff who wears the hat of managing facilities. It may not be their only task,
Right.
but it's
Oh boy.
I
can see you too.
Yeah, Mary Jo may be wearing that hat too, but
No, I mean,
but-
we're gonna have someone who's gonna supervise us, but I can see the actual people doing
Okay.
the work.
I would say most libraries aren't going to have a custodian who's vacuuming the carpets and doing that stuff. There's going to be probably a contracted service, but somebody on staff has to own the management of the building facility.
I'm talking about heating and cooling and changing the filters and stuff like that.
Again, that can be
All kinds of
contracted
maintenance.
services. You
Okay.
can have a service contract with a mechanical contractor who comes in every 3 months
They
and
may be
changes
setting
filters.
up rooms. They may be.
Yeah, that's the other thing. That's particularly if you're doing a ton of programming and the meeting room is in high use and it's constantly being set up, taken down. We'll be thinking about the types of tables and chairs that we're going to specify to make that easy or easier. But it's still something. If you're gonna change out the meeting room from 100 stackable chairs, theater style, to a seminar for 60 people or 40 people, that's time out of somebody's day to do that. And if you don't have that person staffed, then you're not going. It's going to be an impediment to doing programming. So
I think we're probably in agreement.
is that the answer you wanted to hear or not? I'm not sure.
I think that's the answer Mary Jo wanted.
Mary Jo wanted to hear.
We'll talk.
I know
I
that
want there to
at
be
Brighton
I
and
want
a
there to be
building.
some double teaming going on so that it's not just one person, but I want someone else's backup. I have a vision, so.
Okay. I'm just saying it was a person and a half's job in a 25,000 square foot building,
I believe
and
that,
people
yeah.
were still complaining that it wasn't ever clean enough, and they didn't have the help for changing rooms,
Right.
and
Yep.
it was the librarians complaining. in all cases.
Commerce was in a 20,000 square foot library. They're now at 35. When they were in a 20,000 square foot library, they had a full-time facilities person who was not a librarian. I think his whole job was just facilities. Dexter, I don't know. Does Paul have somebody? Where is he?
But both of those people were retirees. I mean, one was retired and had to go back to work because he was raising a grandson. But the other one was a part-time retired.
Yeah.
He did the bathrooms and the vacuuming and all that kind of stuff.
A retiree, so, I mean, actually I've known a number of libraries who have hired as a facilities person a retiree. Oftentimes there's somebody with a construction background. And that's invaluable because they understand systems and know how to deal with that. The Cromaine District Library in 14,000 square feet, plus they have they had their branch, they have a full-time facilities person who's not a librarian. Actually is a former plumber, I think.
Well, there's still the media center too.
Right, right.
You know, it's not just this building in town.
Well, and I know
Oh, yeah.
some libraries will have that facilities person you might have a small van or something that can move materials back and forth. I know you're planning on the cooperative doing deliveries there, but over time you might find the need to have people running back and forth for various reasons.
And
Or
they
IT.
may not need healthcare benefits either, you know, with them being retired too.
Could be, that's good, sure.
Or they might need more healthcare benefits.
Right. Any other questions on the second floor? We kind of got sidetracked. All right, moving on to the next page is we have a couple of options for the basement, and they're just two different ways of doing it. Actually, backing up, just so you know in terms of orientation. So our concept is these first two bays at the very northern edge of the building footprint are where we might consider a basement space. What that does is that allows us to take this stairway down, so we have a fire exit out of the basement. It also captures the elevator and allows the elevator to go down to that level as well.
So it's the side that would abut the
Closest to the museum.
Yeah.
Is where we'd see that. And then, so the concept, and you'd have to remember the previous plan on the first floor, we had, this area was mechanical equipment, and we had some general storage, and we had a lot of things that didn't benefit necessarily by being on an outside wall because they didn't need windows. But what we're suggesting is we move those to the lower level. I like to always call them lower level rather than basement. But so we will have a small mechanical room in this building. We're planning on it previously as well. Even though all of our HVAC equipment will likely be on the roof, but we'll have space in the building for probably a boiler that will maybe do some perimeter heat. We'll have a water heater, for domestic water to heat, for sinks, and then the pumps that control all of that. We'll have a utilities room, which will be for our electrical equipment. And we'll also have, because we're going to have a fire suppression system, we have that whole sprinkler riser and all of that. So that'll all be in the mechanical room as well. So this is roughly about 2,000 square feet of additional space that wasn't in our original budget. They're kind of beyond our original program. And because we have to absorb the stair and the elevator, we don't get as much usable square footage as we would from that 2,000 square feet. But we do get a fair amount. And so we've moved general storage down there. And then we've created an alcove that's where the elevator opens up to as friend space. In addition to a small storage closet for friends. So this storage closet is probably as big as this one behind me over here for the friends. But this potentially gives the friends almost the kind of space that they currently enjoy in the meeting room now with the perimeter shelving. I don't know that we have, I think we have 21 or 21 shelves here. We may not have that many here. And then we're showing kind of a small table or an island counter where friends can do sorting. So this really serves as their sort of rough sorting, staging space where they might sort out the books that they receive in terms of donations, and then move things up to those sale shelves up near the building entrance. But if the friends were to consider maybe having a certain time of the day or a day or two or a couple of days a week where they're willing to staff this space, they could almost open this up as a browsing, not quite a bookstore, but kind of like they do now, and let people come down and sort of browse as a member of the Friends.
They could have
like
a once-a-month book sale or something like that.
Or a special Friends-only opportunity. So we have the capability of being able to let people come down here via the elevator. We have the fire stairs, so it's safe to exit. The only difference is because it's on a separate floor that's unstaffed, the library likely would not open it up to friends to just sort of waltz down there at their leisure like we can do here because we have staff constantly seeing what's going on. But there is that benefit if the friends were willing to sort of step up maybe their volunteerism to a certain extent, or if they know that once a day they're going to have a volunteer here doing sorting or activities, they could have something up on the first floor that says the friend space is open, while we're on site. So that's all more policy driven as far as the library would be concerned. But adding that basement allows us to maybe not only solve some of the functional arrangements that we had on the first and second floor, but it now adds into the library this really enhanced space for friends, which was we weren't able to provide in our much drastically downsized program.
Did the building committee get a chance to talk over the option? There's two options for the basement here, and I know we looked at them before. Was there any?
The building committee did sort of see both of these plans. I don't think we spent a great deal of time talking about one option versus the other. The second one, they're just variations on a theme, so it's just a different way of arranging storage in the friend space. It wasn't. It's not essential that we have a concrete decision on how we do that, because that all can continue to be fleshed out.
But I am interested in what you think about the concept of having a basement.
Yeah.
I like the concept, but does it impact our timeline at all?
Does nothing for our timeline. It does impact our budget, which is the next topic, if we should move to that. So,
But obviously it couldn't be added later. It's so it does not impact our timeline by going into it.
right. Yeah, it's a now or never decision from that standpoint, because we can't add a basement later. So when I mentioned we didn't plan for basement space, or we didn't plan for this excess 2,000 square feet, you know, we developed the budget that was presented as far as the bond issue based on 31,900 square feet. And we have massaged the floor areas since then. And so you have a revised budget that I put together, and O'Neill Construction really needs to take a close look at all of this from a budgeting standpoint, and they'll be doing that. But we're now actually closer to 33,220 square feet is what this current plan suggests with the basement. The basement is actually 2,080 square feet.
And that's with a reduced price on the 2 upper floors.
Well, yeah. So
A little bit.
You know, in terms of the bond issue, we said all space is equal. You know, it all costs the same. We know basement space is technically less expensive to build than finished the first floor, second floor space. So in trying to come up with an equivalency of what our budget would mean for this, I was suggesting that $150 a square foot would buy us basement space, and this is deeper basement space than what you typically find. So we're probably looking at a 12-foot floor to floor for the basement. And then Matt Goodenow, who's our estimator from O'Neill Construction, thought that was a good number for basement space, so he kind of blessed that. Off on the right-hand column, our original budgeting for the bond issue, we were assuming the building square footage was going to price out at about $215 a square foot. Everything on this budget that's in red are changes from that original bond issue budget. Based on the, down towards the lower third of the page, based on the contract that the library and O'Neill Construction developed for construction management, we've added an additional contingency for the guaranteed maximum price of 5%. So we put that in here as a separate line item. That alone took our sort of cost per square foot from $215 a square foot to about $203, $204 a square foot. And so what I did is somewhat academic, but as a way of saying, okay, what if we were to try to afford the basement and fit it into our budget, what would the dollar cost per square foot be for the resulting building? And we're down to about $196 a square foot. So our instinct is we cannot afford the sort of design that we've developed, you know, that you've seen in the renderings at $196 a square foot. We would have to start modifying kind of quality or some of our expectations about that exterior design, or reducing square footage in order to be able to absorb this basement concept. So, and Matt Goodenow sort of kind of concurred with that. He thought we'd have to change scope in some fashion.
On the outside.
Either outside or try to make a smaller footprint, which we know we can't really do. So about the only thing you can start to do is try to save money in the exterior design in some way, and we don't know how we would do that yet. So we'd have to start looking at places where we could save money in order to incorporate this added basement.
Well, I thought we were talking about taking it out of our owner's contingency.
We did. So
okay.
The other change that I want to just mention to you is under site improvements. We had originally budgeted this whole relocation of the DTE overhead cables. We had budgeted under the site cost, but in conversations with DTE and AT&T and all those folks, they're going to handle that construction work. O'Neill Construction is not going to be sort of coordinating that work. So it's really not a construction cost. It's actually going to be an owner's cost that the library's going to have to write a check to DTE to pay for that work. So I've actually pulled that out of this budget just so we're all looking at things appropriately. So I've pulled it out of the budget up here, and then on the second page you'll see down underneath owner's other costs, down there, I've actually added it into that line item and increased, so I'm just moving money around on the page. But the reality is, it moves it down there. We're still waiting on, and that's later on your meeting, but we're waiting on the final cost from Comcast. But we do have sort of firm numbers from DTE and AT&T. And so by doing that, we also gain the benefit is we're not actually applying all these contingencies for escalation and all that across those numbers. So we save a little bit more, and that's factored in there.
And as a note, DTE does not do any of this work. They subcontract everything.
Yeah, I think so does. I don't know about AT&T, but Comcast clearly does that as well. So they'll have a vendor that does the work for them to a certain extent. So the recommendation, if I'm saying that correctly, Joy, from the building committee's discussions a week and a half ago, they felt strongly that the basement solved many problems and really created for a much more enhanced building plan and design. And so we have in our budget, we had budgeted a line item called owner's contingency, which is really there just for this kind of thing, to where you decide that you want to make a change that wasn't originally anticipated. So we had budgeted an owner's contingency at 4.75%. So in our budget, we have about $415,000 that we sort of imagined that you would spend somehow within the building, but we didn't know how. And so if you look up above, that basement cost we're anticipating might have a value of about $312,000. And so the building committee was entertaining the notion that they think there's sufficient value in that basement concept to maybe allocate a very large percentage of the owner's contingency to be able to afford that and add it into the project. And if we did that, then we are essentially able to kind of continue down the road with the design more or less as we conceived it, but be able to essentially absorb the cost of this extra basement space as part of the project.
And in my mind, the value to the basement is that our original plans, which I didn't bring with me, but I don't think had enough storage. First of all, it put admin staff on the second floor, which I know is not the way this organization wants to run. And it allows friend space, which is a big deal for them. And that all of it at least a reduced cost per square foot than we would if we were putting it somewhere else in the building. So those are like the three positives, but it is something we have to decide up front.
This will take a board action.
Yeah.
That and the utilities relocation.
It's not a lot of square feet, but it's square feet that can be used where we need it to be used.
First floor space is precious.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to, there's certain things that need to be in the first floor. Some things can be on the second floor or could be in the basement. And particularly when we have a pretty small site, relatively speaking, the original concept, we had put the things in the right locations where they needed to be, but by being able to put some of those building support spaces like mechanical and storage, general storage down in the basement, it frees up a lot of that first floor space to become more prime space that helps better sort of meet the mission of the library.
But I'm also not willing to go down to, so by using the contingency fund, our major building contingency funds will only be limited now to $100,000, or we would have to lower our square footage. Our allotment of per square feet from 215 per square foot to something lower. I really don't want to change the quality not in a dramatic way, and I think that's a
Wouldn't we have
dramatic
to
way.
change the facade of the building?
Yeah, I think we'd have to simplify certain aspects of the facade or material choices. And so, we'll need O'Neill to give us, their detailed, cost estimating on the design. That's part of the role that they play as part of the design team, to make sure that we can afford what we have. But I would, and we're choosing, and we've already made some choices, as the library has. We're choosing to sort of spend the monies differently as it goes ahead. So this GMP contingency may mean, by pulling that down lower on the budget, it means we're going to have to set that bucket of money aside until we get well into construction and maybe towards the end of construction, before we're comfortable knowing that we're not going to need it. And so Mary Jo and I talked earlier that may mean that we, if there are other things that we choose down the road that we really want to adjust, with the design, we may have to sort of start to mentally rob, say, the furnishings budget, at least temporarily, knowing that we would choose not to spend maybe as much for furnishings out of the gate, but know that we might be able to replenish that with unspent construction contingency or GMP contingency, and still realize the building you want. But there are certain things that we have to make a decision on putting into the project now versus later, and so this is one of those things. We sometimes do, work with libraries where if they're on a really tight budget, we, early on in the bond issue, we put in 0 for the owner's contingency because they can't afford it, or they choose not to think that they want to do that. So when they do want to make a change, then we have to say to them, okay, if you want to make that change, what do you want to give up to trade off for that? So having the owner's contingency gives you the flexibility to be able to make this kind of decision. I normally wouldn't say right out of the gate, let's spend 2/3 of it, but it's a contingency line item for the library, for the board, to choose really how you choose to spend it.
Or we could lower our square foot by 10, we could do a hybrid, where we're lowering it a little bit, our square foot price.
Well, we've already lowered it to about 203, 204 from 215. And O'Neill will tell us right now. What he did is he looked at our original budget and compared our original budget, which hasn't had the 5% removed out of it, compared that to the Dexter District Library, and thought we were on par with Dexter. So I already know out the gate, because he's not thinking about this extra contingency bucket that we have to set aside. So we already have some pressures on that and how we're going to address that as a building team. But my instinct is we can still have a very nice building at 204 square foot instead of 215. But we may, those things like the vegetative roof and some of those things are less likely to be had at that lower cost than we might otherwise, unless we choose to take maybe a little bit more risk with our furnishings budget and hope that we can put unspent contingency and construction contingency towards furniture down the road. So those are some of the decisions that the library board will have to make as we kind of progress.
I want to let the full board know. I know the building committee knows this, but the full board needs to know also that there was a reasonable amount of staff engagement in this discussion, not just Mary Jo, other staff, and this, and then those of us who were in here a lot and talked to staff. There's the concept and addition of a basement really brings a lot of comfort to the people who work here, who have the most investment in this, in terms of us being able to provide what we're supposed to provide as a library. So it is, it's a big, clearly we just talked about, it's a big chunk of the contingency but it's a substantial foundational change to really create the kind of library experience we want to have.
And just to sort of add to that, some additional information that we've recently received is the geotechnical report came back in terms of our soil borings, and good news, bad news. The bad news is in the vicinity of our building footprint, proposed building footprint, we actually have some poor soils. And it's kind of fill soils and some things that aren't so great. So we actually have about 6 feet of not good soils that we can't put the building, set the building on. And so that's the bad news. The good news is because that's the case, and it doesn't matter what we do, we have to deal with that. So, and we'll be talking with our structural engineers and O'Neill on how do we best address that. But there are basically 2 options. We can basically dig out 6 feet, 6 feet down across that entire floor plate, building footprint, and haul it off site and come back with nice engineered fill and bring it up to our normal foundation bearing level. It is 42 inches below grade. So we'd have to build up and replace that earth to have suitable foundations. Or we make the decision that we just take our foundations deeper. You know, instead of 42 inches, 3.5 feet, we have to go 6 feet.
You mean your
and then
footings?
Footings, right.
Footings, yeah.
And then we're down on the hard clay that is actually underneath that 6 feet of softer material.
Would it be cheaper just to make the footings deeper instead of eliminating all the 6 feet of dirt?
It could be. There's the bearing capacity per the soil engineers. The bearing capacity will be slightly less good if we bear an engineered fill. Fill. So that means our concrete footings will be wider. If we go shallower, in theory they can be narrower, less concrete if we go deeper. So that's exactly the kind of thing that is why we have O'Neill.
In the answer to, I didn't get the answer to John's question. He was
He's asking, would it be
going
cheaper?
Deeper would be cheaper than
Well,
filling water.
well, that is the exact kind of question that we'll have O'Neill answer for us.
We don't know for sure.
So we'll work through that with our structural engineer and what the ramifications for the footing design would be from one option to the other. But essentially, the good news aspect of that is we have at least for in terms of this basement question, we have to deal with that 6 feet somehow. So if we're going to have to, if we choose the most cost-effective approach is to take the foundation down to 6 feet instead of 42 inches, then to go down another 6 more feet is, we're not paying the full premium price, essentially, is what I'm saying, for the cost of the foundation, for the basement. At least for that smaller portion of the building. We have to deal with it anyways. But that's just the nature of the soils that we're experiencing out there. The other thing that the soil borings suggested is that they hit water at about 5 feet. And so there's a little bit of water that won't impact really the building long term, but it's probably going to have a little bit of an impact on their construction process. They'll have to deal with that water. And it's because our soils that are underneath that are very clayey, so it's essentially perched water. So water, drain water filters down through that first 6 feet, hits that clay layer, it doesn't have anywhere to go, so it just sort of sits there. So as soon as you poke through it, we got some issues to deal with.
Taking out 6 feet of soil.
I'm not saying we're going to do that, John. That's just one of the technical solutions.
Wouldn't that compromise the fire hall, the museum?
Well, no, it has to be done in a way that it doesn't create any problems for the existing building.
That's pretty sacred to us also.
What's that?
That's pretty sacred to us
sure,
also.
but no, they may have to put in sheet piling. Probably
Remember
not
those
there,
pictures of
we're not that-
O'Neill digging right next to that law library?
Yeah, I remember
Was it
that.
the law library?
Yeah. I mean, it would 6 feet wouldn't impact the fire hall. at all, because typically the excavation is going to be essentially done at a 45-degree angle. So if we have to go 6 feet down, the cut that they would do would be 6 feet horizontally, and we have 20 feet or so separation between.
But we are insured, right?
I'm sure. I'm sure. There are ways. They build. Look at downtown Ann Arbor. They build giant holes right
In
next to
Venice,
the
they do.
Right.
Down
So-
into
So
deep
the
water.
I just throw that out that we have a soils issue that the building is going to have to, and the design is going to have to respond to, and the budget's going to have to absorb, and it's not a big deal, but it's new information that we now have as a team, and we'll design the building accordingly, but it's just something that we'll have to address.
If it's 6 foot, some of it's gonna come out and stay out. 'Cause
Correct.
the basement's gonna go into it.
Right. And you're going to always take down the first 12 inches.
So we're doing a favor by putting basement.
Well, it's you can feel like the true cost of adding the basement is reduced just because of
Right.
the nature of the foundation design that we're going to have to deal with anyways. So you can think of it that way.
That's a good way to put it. Very good.
So do you want a motion on anything?
Yeah, we need to take
Well, I would
your
like to
business.
hear feedback from Tanya and
Yeah, I think it's a very smart idea. I mean, I think we really need the extra space. I mean, you think it's enough space until you see everything. It's like, wow, that tutoring room is just not going to be big enough,
Yeah.
So I really think we need the extra space. So yeah, I would, be willing to.
I agree. I think it's an excellent idea, and like Dan said, you can't put a basement in later.
Right.
So, and then it will serve many purposes too, just having the extra space there.
Be a tornado shelter.
Well, actually,
It could be extra.
it
True
does.
that.
It does provide that benefit, and that's we've never designed a library to be so-called fallout shelter, but it's always an issue. And librarians are usually, when we get the building done, the director will ask me, "Okay, where do we go in the tornado?" And they're like, "Well," so that actually does give you the safest place.
My
to go.
building is we put a sign out when we have a tornado warning, we put a sign out that we're a tornado shelter and everybody goes downstairs.
Yeah.
Or they have to leave.
Whitaker Road Library is not as good. There's not a really good place other than the bookmobile garage or some internal hallways, but there's so much. I mean, a library is pretty much large, wide open spaces that you can see all the way across the building from one outside wall to the next. That doesn't give you a lot of place to get away from areas of glass.
Okay, I'm going to make a motion then. I motion that we utilize our owner's contingency funding to add a basement to our preliminary budget.
I'll second that.
It's been moved by Stoudemire and supported by Dawson, utilizing a portion of the owner's contingency.
They do it.
Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Is there any, I'm glad you're moving on this because we're running out of time, but any further need for discussion before we vote? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed by saying no? The motion carries unanimously.
I'd like to go on record saying that I like D,
D.
the lower level.
Option D.
Oh, option D.
LLD. I think the Friends would probably prefer that layout.
Yeah, I kind of like that better for the friends too. I was wondering if
Any
staff
particular
had-
reason?
Because of where the storage is and,
The
for
Friends
friend
is-
storage, and then where they would be able to put books out.
Mm-hmm.
To me, having done book sales, it makes the most sense.
So longer, narrower spaces are better than more of a.
Well, then
yeah.
the closet
And that closet,
is
the storage closet,
more
in
contiguous.
the one is like in the other half of
Right.
the lower level.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm not challenging you. I mean, we do have the ability, we could put more shelving there too, so this might feel like an extension of the Friends area. So,
I still like those.
but
that's just me, so.
no, that's good, that's good, that's,
With that,
all I can
do is bring this to the next Friends meeting in August.
yeah, maybe let them have some input.
See what they,
sure.
what they like.
Yeah, and, I mean, my first task, my task this week is to get sort of a blessing from our consulting engineers that they can live. I'll don't write this in paper. I purposely sort of undersized.
It's being recorded for
Yeah.
online.
Mute button. I sort of intentionally sort of downsized the mechanical space and some of these utility closets on the smaller side with the intent of seeing if I can get the engineers to sort of live with it, make sure that it's adequate for them, but to not give them overly generous spaces so we can give more usable space to storage and friends. So I'll have that meeting this week.
Those might have to bump up your.
Yeah, so if they come back and say, oh no, that's not going to work for us, it's going to create problems, then we're going to adjust that layout, and then we're going to have a revised layout to share with friends.
Okay.
But I'm trying to sort of squeeze them to where it's as efficient as we can make it, so we can maximize the actual usable space for the library.
Well, with what Mary Jane said about preference between C and D, wouldn't, for Mary Jo, wouldn't the D puts the general storage and the mechanical storage, puts more the non-public part of it together, doesn't it? That's what it looks like to me. So I kind of...
There's, I think, more general storage in, was it C? Or whichever.
Might be, but it's not, you have to go through the friends to get to it.
That doesn't
Have to be.
Well, I think that's going to be the case no matter what, just because we were trying to make the friend space
Either way, you're
contiguous with the elevator, and
No, but I mean,
But you can still,
well, anyway.
yeah.
Well, I think the idea of taking it to the friends and letting them look at it and do the thing. And I think that, I know that's going to make them, that's the one thing we've heard from the people that are most supportive of the library, is that maybe having more adequacy for the friends, so this does that. Well, okay.
It takes it off the first floor.
Right,
that
but
storage.
Dan's saying it's a little bit preliminary right now anyway, so.
it probably will change some. So, we have time to continue to evolve and make it as great as we can.
The other thing that we're gonna need a motion on has to do with the utilities. You've heard comments twice now about that the DTE, we have to have a good lead time with DTE if we're gonna do anything, if we're gonna do, for them to do it for us. We do have formal documentation from DTE and AT&T, and Dan, with much effort, has finally got Comcast to be responsive. Did they come back before the end of today?
No, they promised to have.
They said by tomorrow?
Today or tomorrow, and then they're going to have to crunch their numbers and actually give the library a quote. So, I've asked the vendor to email me when he sends his information to Comcast, so I can let the mental clock start ticking to follow up with a. This was supposed to happen 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, they were supposed to have it by June 25th.
Yeah, 25th.
But we can't fool around with this forevermore. So our feeling has been that we wanted to take some board action on this utilities issue with a little caveats on it for the part that we don't have final information on.
I would like to think that Comcast could come back to us within a week, roughly speaking, with a number and
as long as the number is within our range,
we'd be good to go. But so my notion, either we sort of commit to maybe suggest the DTE is the driver with this. They're driving the bus, and they said they need 6 to 8 months to plan and execute the relocation.
And they need the money up front.
Right. We went to meet with them 3 months ago. We've
Right.
been
It's been
waiting on
at
these
least
other
that.
two
Right.
and trying to get this stuff
So it sounds like they're all going to need the money up front before they'll even start their engineering. I don't know how long their engineering process is, but certainly it's not going to take them 6 months to do the work, but they have a lot of planning to do ahead of that. So I would really like for us to be able to get DTE going as quickly as possible. Just 6 months from now, it's January, and so that's about the time we're hoping to be able to start moving ahead. Well, in the spring.
Well, we had hoped to have that late this year, have the utility stuff.
So currently our cost for these 2 utilities that we have the price on is $270,000 total, and we had, I believe,
350.
About 360, just shy of 360 total allocated in the budget.
So I would like to make a motion that we pay these people and move
Second.
forward.
I do not understand the schematic at all.
What is green is new, what is red is being removed, and what's blue is existing to remain, I think, is DTE's code there. So what they're proposing to do is put in, the dots are actual utility poles, the lines are the overhead cables. So they're proposing to put in new power poles that don't currently exist, extending down 3rd Street. And then on the property lines, sort of at the rear lot line of the houses that front on Charles and Church Street, they're looking at replacing existing power poles with taller power poles that will allow that primary electrical lines to be rerouted. So that's what you're looking at there. And then everything you see in red is being eliminated, so we avoid the aerial cables that are spanning over 4th Street and Roy Street.
What's the green on 4th Street and Roy's?
Let me look at that.
That's that little
Is that the temporary one or something? Is there a temporary one?
I think that's a temporary thing.
The green on Roy Street, the light kind of light green.
4th Street and Roy's. Well, no, on Roy's and 4th Street.
There's
these 2 right here.
There's this where am I? No, I lost it. There's this green that's there where the red is. There is currently a power pole, or the blue lines coming down 4th Street is electrical that is coming down there. We're going to abandon that one section. That green dot is a new pole to terminate that existing run. Right now, that pole actually comes over to here, like right in front of the library, right out here. And that's basically to just stabilize the power pole. So what happens is we have to have a structural wire, essentially, because all of the electrical cables are pulling those. They want to pull those poles over, and so they need to bring it down to grade. So they're going to put a new pole in there just to structurally stabilize the other poles. This one over here is going to be a new pole that will probably refeed the museum. And then the one that's across the street, if you look out there next to the Baptist church, there's a power pole that's really leaning right now.
Big time.
The library's probably going to end up paying for that to be replaced. It really needs to be replaced because it shouldn't be leaning.
Are you talking about the dot, the circle with the dot in it? The
Yes,
green one?
yes.
Really
So that's an existing pole that's going to be replaced. I don't know. Actually, when the DT linemen were out here when we had that big storm on the H&B property, they were cutting down trees. I happened to be here and chatted with one of the linemen. He said he noted that pole was leaning and put in a work order for it to be replaced. It's going to get replaced probably as part of this project, but that is going to be a new power pole that will allow the power to drop and go underneath Roy Street to feed the transformer for the new library. So that is something that we're adding. So everything you see in red is power that's being eliminated. Does that make sense, John? What's kind of not really shown here, where these 2 dots are, so these 2 red power poles are existing power poles that are running along the alley, but they happen to fall within our new proposed parking lot. So DT is going to move those poles to the other side of the alley,
Good.
and that overhead blue line is just going to cross diagonally over the alleyway. So we're not having to really refeed any of these other businesses other than sort of make connections at the new poles.
Are those in the alley or are they private property?
They're along the. Generally speaking, the utility poles are on the property line, so they're probably on the line that is common between the library's property where it abuts the alley. So that's generally where they put those. Whether they're technically spot on or not, I guess you'd have to look at the survey. But so that's what's being contemplated, and then as I said, DTE sort of drives the bus. They have to get their engineering work done. They'll have to physically get the poles installed before AT&T and Comcast would be able to relocate their lines to them. So all of that's going to be closely coordinated amongst the 3 utility providers.
So if I'm not mistaken, we have a motion, was it seconded, a motion by Joy to have it, and a second to that motion from John Jarega. And I agree with what Dan has said. We've been those of us that were able to go out there to DTE, is really interesting, and I probably wouldn't understand this thing if I hadn't gone out there either, but we were really pleased that they were able to do it. It minimizes all that, what we thought was going to have to be underground and
So when can we get this in motion?
When should we?
Well, I think
we have to
have
make
to
a motion
wait.
tonight.
We did, didn't we?
We haven't
made a
voted
motion.
on
We
it yet.
haven't voted yet.
We haven't voted
Okay,
yet.
okay.
We're still talking about
Okay.
it. What were you saying?
I was going to say, I mean, we could make a motion, as I already made one, but we could make a motion that we go ahead as long as the Comcast is within our budget. And that way,
We
you're not
don't have
going
to
over
come
our
back.
budget. Yeah.
That would be my recommendation is
So that's
is
a caveat.
The
to
caveat.
to make the
the
motion
caveat is-
approve contingent on Comcast coming back within our allocated
Overall budget.
Which
budget.
is like about 90,000 for them.
And I'm AT&T was only 64, so I mean
And we don't want to tell them that, Rose.
if they come back, if they come back and their cost is going to be $200,000, then we need to regroup.
Right.
Yeah.
But rather than either ask the board to have a special meeting in a week or
Right.
two,
That's right.
or to
We
kick
wanna
this another
avoid-
month down the road,
Right.
All
I'd
right.
like to have.
So
So
with
let
that-
me revise the motion to accept the contracts from DTE and AT&T under the condition that we wait until we have the Comcast figure and it's under our budget.
We probably ought to put the dollar amounts in that motion for each respective one. Your call. I'm sorry.
So there is a motion, a motion by Joy, seconded by John, on these, which would allow us to not have to either have a special meeting or have to wait till our next meeting to get this moving. And that's our goal, and I think everybody understands the contingency.
I do have a question. Do we have a timeline that this has to happen by? That we have to?
We don't. I haven't asked Matt Ratzoff from O'Neill if it impacts them.
No, I meant the 2 utilities, DTE. Isn't there a time frame that?
Oh, actually, there was. Thank you.
It's supposed to
When
be
AT&T gave us their quote, they said it was only good for 30 days.
Oh.
And I emailed them back and said, this is a public body. They meet once a month. I mean, give me a break. And so he was willing to hold it for 60 days.
So when's the 60 days?
Whatever that date is on the
So
thing.
this is May 22nd, so
Yeah,
June
so-
22nd. July 22nd.
July 22nd. So yeah, we're running.
Which is next week.
That's not.
They would.
Yeah.
It's not like it's gonna. They would just have to go back and probably requote it. 'Cause
Okay.
they're just
But we
their
don't
system.
even want that to happen.
I
I
know.
mean, that's another good reason why we
And
need to act on
AT&T
it now.
doesn't, do they have a time frame?
That's for AT&T. DTE, I don't believe gave us
They
any.
didn't give us, they just said that it was 6 months, from when we paid
Okay.
the money, it would be 6 more months before they can do the work, but also the weather
Yeah, big
goes
condition.
into that, that was why we were trying to.
AT&T is July 22nd.
Yeah, but
Yeah, but he's the one that's
DTE
on that.
wasn't, it was just, we would like to get it done. Anyway,
If the board passes, I may tomorrow email AT&T, just say the board is authorized this contingent on getting this note from Comcast, but we're
Right.
delayed,
right,
just to let them know that
We're moving.
the lobby's taking action, but
Yeah.
Right,
we
right.
can't really sign on the dotted line until we have
right.
that final number.
That's a good question, thank you. Any other questions? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed by saying no. The motion carries. Those are the two biggest things. There is a third item.
So the building committee authority is exactly the kind of things that we've been sort of doing today. Ypsilanti Libraries, when they built Whitaker Road, did a huge, this very complex document of what's the board's power, what's the building committee's power, and who are they going to authorize to do what. And
We didn't envision needing quite so much.
yeah, but I wanted to clarify about, when awarding contracts, when we're approving the final schematics and things like that. I think things like that they should come before the board, and when we're making a major design change like the basement, and whether this board feels comfortable trusting us to bring this before you, if you would like a more formal document.
So this item 3 is more a discussion item. I don't think we envision,
But I just want to
action
check
today.
in.
and as Joyce said, there are examples, as in the Ypsilanti District Library, of very complicated several page
We were
things,
going,
which
I
we
think,
didn't
through
really,
some political
we didn't
stuff at
really
the
push.
time too.
Well, I think that the other thing is the chair of the building committee, who actually kind of crafted that, was the former president of the Friends, so was not a board member. So I think
Oh, that's weird.
he was well, sort of, but I think he was looking to make sure that he was clear on the authorities, since he didn't have that direct.
Because he wasn't a board
He
member.
didn't have a vote, yeah, which I think is
Well,
kind of smart.
I'm not sure, but Joy, I think my sense is that the building committee is very, recognizes their responsibility, but really wants the clarity and making sure there's engagement of the entire board at appropriate times. We're not looking, we don't have any written thing. If the board feels that something should be, a written policy should be drafted, perhaps, I mean, this would be the time for people to give input as to whether, how they
And the
feel.
second question, which is not directly related, but somewhat, is whether we had talked at some point having a member or two from the public to be invited to be on the building committee to give input on specific things. And one person that comes to mind is Mike Bolter, who would be willing to do that, although I don't know how much he can meet. So whether that would be an issue for the rest of our board. You don't want that?
No, I don't, I haven't, no.
Oh, okay.
I would
Not
like to see-
against it.
I'd like to see Deb Green on it.
Deb Green is another one.
Yeah.
We can take input from folks tonight and have this thought through another place, or we
Sure.
could talk about it again next time. We had some major things we've done tonight, and we've,
Yeah, we
Spent
can
a
go
lot of
on, I
time
just
on
wanted to throw it out there, and I
Yeah.
have a document, which I forgot to make copies of, but I can make some copies of it and pass that on to you and send it on to Michelle.
My recommendation,
that was
my recommendation, or I think advice to the full board would be to just be comfortable and be very clear on what your expectations are for the things that, as a full board, that you want to weigh in. Most libraries are very good about this. Most library boards are very good about this. The thing that we would want to avoid, and you won't do this, but we'd want to avoid any kind of micromanagement of the full board over decisions that the building committee or direction that the building committee has made. So there are, in my view, there are certain things that the board must do, which are approving contracts and approving the phases of completion, schematic design, design development, authorizing bids, awarding contracts to contractors, those sorts of things. When it comes down to picking paint colors and carpet, that's generally not something that the board wants to be or ought to be involved. The smaller the number of people, the easier it is to get to those answers. But there are certain things, whether it's allocating money that's within the budget, moving things around, those are the things that the board has to decide what your comfort level is with the building committee making certain decisions, or what you want them to bring back to the board for those decisions. And it's really more about being clear on your expectations. So.
Are there comments, any feedback, any concerns? Okay. This is an item that we can talk about more. Certainly, the building committee has been bringing things to the full board and has engaged in robust discussion, as this evening is an example. Any other? Okay. Then I think we can move on to the bylaws committee.
I have nothing to say.
Yeah, and we do have a few items on the finance committee, so I'll move to Tanya.
In your packet is the engagement letter from our auditor, Allen Young and Associates, who will audit the financial statements for the year ending June 30th, 2017. This is an annual requirement, so I'm going to make a motion that we approve the engagement letter from our auditor, Allen C. Young and Associates.
Second.
Okay, done.
It's moved by Stoudemire and supported by Dawson. Is that what we decided?
Yes.
Whatever. That's fine.
I have a question, just because we went through this at IPSI. At IPSI, we had used the same auditor for like many, many years, and a new director wanted to change auditors, and it was to one she didn't know that was another local auditor, as a fresh perspective. She just felt like it's good to change auditors now and again to make sure you keep having a good triple A rating or whatever it's called from multiple perspectives.
Yeah, I don't know how long we've been using them.
Just started. Only been, what, 3 years?
It's probably a little longer than that.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, we can use them for this year, but maybe we want to
Yeah.
think about that at some future year, because it's already done. So let's do it. But
That's good.
Okay.
So the motion still stands, right? That's,
Yep.
that doesn't change
Yeah.
the motion. The motion by Stoudemire, supported by Dawson. There's been some discussion. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by saying no. The motion carries with no dissenting votes. And then this bond investment fund portfolio, that's not an action item.
No, that's just
the
information.
information item.
Yeah.
But it is a finance item. So, Tanya, do you have anything you need to tell us about this? Or Mary? We got this all going now.
But I had a chance to look at this earlier, so I was comfortable with it, unless you guys should say that.
Okay.
pretty Greek to me.
Oh, you're the finance committee. You're the other finance
The projected draws will make sure that they're in a timely manner that we can get the building built, right? Okay.
And you have your requisite pie charts and graphs, so that we know that we are official. Is there any other item in finance? Then we can move on to the marketing committee. Yo, yo, yo. We can move on to the marketing committee. And there's some discussion we need to have associated with marketing. Marketing committee didn't meet formally lately, had
No, we didn't meet this, between the last meeting.
But there is a meeting that the board should be aware of, and that is a continuation of the discussions we've had on marketing. You remember last time we looked at a draft that was to go to neighbors about our giving them information about the building plan. And since then, we did run that by the DDA, Carol Thompson from the DDA, and she had some input. And we have moved forward in both disseminating that information and also setting a time for Dan to join us to kind of interact with the neighbors, kind of giving this open door, which is next week this time, right? Next Tuesday at 6
p.m.
So it's a little earlier than what our board meeting is, and it's going to be at the church,
Methodist Church,
the Methodist church,
across the street, in the
This
sanctuary.
room is being
across some street. I always.
You don't think that'll be a problem?
Is it that way? Is that the
Across the street.
Methodist church? Yes.
Yeah,
I'm always.
there
pointing the wrong
won't be a
direction.
problem, will there? But, I mean, with the other religious beliefs,
Oh,
being
no.
the sanctuary,
I don't think so. I don't think so.
some people.
I don't think God cares.
Well, I don't
He
know.
just wants the
No,
library
she
to go
doesn't.
to.
It could be, I don't know that we've got any feedback. I will respond, Rosemary and we were talking, I have been contacted by one of those we invited, who was a downtown business person, and that's Barbara Miller, who had received the letter and was very positive about the meeting and offering her assistance, and hopefully she's got a little health thing going on, I've just learned, but hopefully she'll be well and be able to be at the meeting. And she said she'd be helpful, and she was going to speak to people about it, but she might not be able to do that. I don't know if there's a lot of I haven't gotten any other feedback from the people that received the letter. Have you?
Not yet.
The minister at the Methodist Church thought that was a great idea, informing the neighborhood.
Yeah, and especially like this utility plan thing that we were just looking at, where these poles have to go through the block between Charles and Church. You know, people. I mean, you know, you just want people to know what to
Well,
expect.
with these two churches next to each other, with marriages, funerals, stuff like that planned already, you know.
Who did the letter go out to?
It went out to all of the area businesses and neighbors, specifically within this area, this block.
residential too.
Residential to Charles Street, and then the neighbors on Church Street that would be affected by the power poles going down the right of way.
And
So, and also the local, well, we put a little press release in the paper too for anyone who's interested can come. But also we invited the, like City Council, DDA, Planning Commission.
And the DDA helped us in disseminating.
Do you think we'll need a speaker system in that for the church?
Where are we in the
Sanctuary.
sanctuary?
Yeah.
That's what we were just wondering.
They
Where-
already have one?
Pardon me?
They won't already have one?
I didn't sign up for it.
If they have it,
I don't-
it would still
no,
need somebody. I mean, didn't need to be turned on.
I don't know.
Do they have fixed pews or?
Say what?
Are
Yeah.
there
Fixed
fixed
pews.
pews? Okay.
I have a rock blocker and a mic that we use at
Yeah.
the library.
Well,
all the
I
time.
asked the church, if I had something you just plug in and,
Yeah, if they do.
yeah.
Will you
That's
ask
a better
them
way.
Yeah,
before
I'll work
next
on it,
week?
yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm not sure how many people we'll get, but my vision for the meeting is less. We'll have to do a little bit of a presentation and overview, kind of an update, but I'm hoping it's more of a dialogue and a Q&A and just sort of a conversation. Think of it as a community conversation, so we can all kind of be on the same page. And more importantly, I want to make sure that those that are closest to the library site can be informed about what's going to happen. They may have some input that will shape our final plans. We can talk about some ideas that we have in terms of how we deal with our parking lot. But I really want it to be more of a dialogue rather than me standing at a podium, sort
They should
of rattling
have
up.
name tags with their name and their address.
Well, I mean, I think it's really kind of more of a listening and making sure that we're all. We want to be good. We want to be good neighbors. So,
Yeah.
and that, if they have concerns or questions, we may not have all the answers. Particularly things like, I can see the neighbors who are going to have new power poles put in their backyard. Well, we're not going to be able to tell them how the DT is going to do that, but we might hear the questions that we can then forward to DTE and ask them to give us, give the library the feedback on how that's going to happen.
Alan, are you available on Tuesday the 18th?
What time?
6 o'clock?
6 o'clock. That's putting it in.
Good. That it would be good for the marketing, for us to consider this kind of part of our marketing committee effort and marketing effort. And we don't have much of any idea. We had communication from the property just on this side of us, on the other side of the alley, and from Barbara, as I've said, Barbara Miller.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, we've been told by the DDA and the mayor that people have been asking questions.
Baptist Church.
The churches around us, so we have reached out and we'll see what we get. We really don't know what to expect about this little meeting. So it could be a very small meeting, maybe it'll be more, who knows.
Small is not bad. We can all get around drawings and have a conversation too. That's how it turns out. I think we did get a response from David Robb that he's not likely to be in town.
But he thought maybe he was going to try and see if somebody from his family could
Right.
come.
And he did suggest that he and I could talk by phone. I'll be happy to follow up with him just to.
Barbara told me does his family still own the building that the Bell's shop is in?
I think so.
Yeah. So yeah, hopefully maybe somebody in his family will come in. Yeah, if you can talk with him. So we're that is happening. That's a thing, and that should be on all of your calendars. And as many of us who can be there would be good. And if people can be encouraged to come, and I was encouraged that Barbara reached out after she received her invitation. She was very pleased about the meeting. And you're telling me that the church is, and so that's all good. Anything else on that issue or on marketing in general? Then we'll move to the personnel committee, and the personnel chair is not here, and I'm not aware of anything. Anything on policy committee? No report?
No report.
Good. Good for you. We then can move to item 7, which is accounts payable.
I just want to point out the second page of the check register report is actually the building project. So that kind of slipped in between the other two.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that was the one. It was the fewest number of checks and the biggest amount. Fewest number of checks to sign, biggest amount of money.
It's hard to sign those big checks.
That was the day I was available for signing checks, so I had to look at them and had my head reel a little bit. But
I see a lot of the programming. Is are the Friends actually paying for that, but the checks are being written by the library?
It's kind of half and half, so.
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
I make a motion to approve
Okay, it's been moved by Shahevitz and seconded by Jariga that the accounts payable be approved. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, the ayes have it, it's unanimous.
I didn't notice, so it looks like the PFM fees are a little bit higher than the original estimate.
I think they did end up coming in a little bit higher. I don't know. Yeah.
When you say a little bit, are you talking thousands or?
Yeah.
3,000-4,000, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the one that I was coughing when I
Yeah.
signed that.
That's a little higher than that.
The professional fees for the finance advisors.
Wait till you sign a check for DTE.
Huh?
Wait till you sign a check for DTE.
Oh, yeah, well, that way though, the check for you guys wasn't the biggest one.
That's I'm glad to hear that.
Since we at least can look at you and moan
Right.
when we're talking about it.
Gotcha.
The PFM people didn't come for
Right.
us to look at them. But I don't know, is that something that requires any
No, I
follow-up?
just,
It is
I'm
high.
just signing this, so I
It's a
don't
lot of
know.
money. Well, we already voted.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
Yeah, no, I just
Okay.
need to change it.
Then, the director's report. Mary Jo?
Okay, I will be brief because I know everybody wants to go home. Dan, this article is for you. It's for all of us, but it's for you. This is the future of libraries in the digital age.
I read it.
Okay.
But you emailed it. Very cool.
Also an article about Beverly Jenkins.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping we can get her back. We should have done a program for us in a while, so I'm hoping to get her back soon.
She's been doing a lot of travel, but I know I circulated this on my Facebook and got a lot of feedback from people here and also people that knew us in college, knew her in college. She's a great asset to the community.
She really is. We had a lot of good summer reading programs. I've been peeking in on some of them, and I personally have enjoyed them, so my kids have as well. I think they are.
Good
Ring of
prize.
Steel Action Troop was really awesome. It was one of the team programs, and they were doing a lot of sword demos and sword fighting, and so that was cool.
The numbers for children's programs way up.
And adult program.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's good.
Good.
Air conditioner is struggling a bit again. We've got to call in to our guy, so we have to hold out for 2.5 more summers, but and I am very appreciative of the Methodist Church. We have programs every day next week in this room, so there was no way we were able to host our town hall here. So.
Because we've got so much stuff going on. And it didn't rain for very long this evening, so I don't think we ever get the umbrellas and the tarps. Well, good. Yeah, summer is really busy in our library and fun. So I'm glad to have the regular attendance down a little.
I do have one question, Mary Jo. The one on the tax capturing, tax capture changes.
Yeah.
I didn't see that. How did it turn out? So when is it starting?
It's the same bill. They just added some language to clarify some points.
Oh, this,
It was just more of a cosmetic thing. But basically, that was the bill that had been hanging around for a year.
That we needed to.
That we would have been nice
Done a
for them to have
few
passed before.
A month earlier.
Yeah. So.
So it's all new villages.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
They're introduced. Okay. I see John making motions over there. So is that the end of our director's report, my dear?
ADHD.
Well, we have been here a long time. Trustee comments in that, with that note, we'll have trustee comments.
What is done with that film we're taking? Yeah,
We posted it on YouTube.
And does anybody watch it?
Rosemary did and complimented him.
Good.
Yeah, it was
on
very
quality.
easy
Um,
to.
Good. Yeah, we linked to it from the library board page, under our meeting. We have, meeting agenda minutes, and then a video link. We also have, the library has its own YouTube channel too, so if someone wants to Google this, they could probably find it.
So if you want to look at yourself and see the little tics you have, I think I have a lot.
If somebody has 2
I'm like-
hours, somebody has insomnia.
We have experienced some technical difficulties from time to time, so we're still trying to work through some of that. I think it's
How long
Yes,
does
couple
it
times
take
it's
to
been-
do that? To take it from the iPad to.
I'll have to ask Destiny. I think they just leave it go overnight and deal with it the next morning, so that it's not even anything you have to
Okay.
just plug it in and hit send.
So all of us can
Suggest-
relive the glory of these meetings. If we haven't had enough fun yet, we can just go over it.
It's not long enough. Groundhog Day.
So is that your comment, John?
Yes.
That's your trustee comment?
No comments.
Tanya, no comment. Michelle is not here. Joy, my dear?
No comment.
I have a question. Do we have a building committee meeting on Thursday?
Yes.
What time? No.
9.
But I might not be able. I still
Yeah, I
don't
know.
about
I know about that. I just
Yeah.
want to make sure it's tonight. Okay, just real short. The good news is nobody in my family has died in the past couple of weeks.
It's good news.
But I just like to thank everybody that sent a card, gave me a hug, showed up, sent me a text or whatever when Pauline died and when my mom died. Really appreciate it.
It's been
We
quite
gave them both a grand send off. Would have been easier if they'd have both, we could have combined
all
the two
together.
funerals, but
They got about as close as they could to that.
they each got a great send off. But one of the things I wanted to tell you was my brother-in-law in California had this wonderful idea for his mom when she died. Was also Rick's mom. He had a bunch of pennies that were minted the year of her birth, 1919, and my sister-in-law put them in these little plastic packets and we passed those out. And then for my mom, there were so many people, because she had a visitation and then the next day was the funeral. I thought, I'm gonna run out of pennies in 20 minutes, because she had her whole clown group came and so anyway, I passed out her pennies after the funeral on Monday, and we still only had 2 left, but hers was from 1913. So for those of you who want to know exactly how old my mom was, she was 103, 8 months,
Amazing.
and almost 16 days.
Wow.
So, but yeah, they both had great
Yeah,
lives.
Rick's mom was 97, right?
Almost 98, and
Wow.
so.
You had anybody else in your family get past 95? No?
My grandmother on my dad's side.
You'll be around this one.
How do you get pennies on the same day?
Same year.
My brother-in-law knows people. He's got peeps. He went to a
Really? Numerology or?
no.
There's a name for
Mrs.
No,
Mrs. Is it?
there is a
It-
name for.
And then
coin
he had to
people.
pay more than they were worth.
Of course.
Okay, and then he had to buy the plastic packets, and then he overnighted them. So I have no idea how much money it cost him. But
So there are people who like hoarding pennies of each year.
When they're minted, they buy a bunch of them,
Yeah.
and then they save them and they can sell them for more.
yeah, they came in these little plastic
Who knew?
tubes.
1913.
I never thought.
Yeah.
So
My
cool.
son does.
That's cute.
And for somebody who is 103, that's like a big deal to have those.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So when I gave them to the grandkids, I said, "These are as old as great grandma was." Wow. And they're copper.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they were worth way more than a penny.
So anyway,
Well,
That's
penny's
it.
worth more than a penny.
Yeah, that's what I
Costs
mean.
more than a penny to make.
Any penny is worth way more than a penny. Well, our condolences, we all spoke about it the one meeting that you did have to miss, and I know everybody's gotten in touch with you, but collectively, it's been quite a thing, and you and Rick have done so much with this library, so your mothers, we really feel that for you.
And now we're orphans.
Yeah.
I know, I was
Yeah,
thinking
you
that.
really, no matter how old you are, you still feel that way.
It's okay.
I do want to have say a thank you to the library staff for the Strawberry Festival and doing, I don't know, was it all library staff?
Oh, we had friends at the last
Or
break.
did you have
Yeah, I had some friends that did. None of us could be there. That was,
Yeah, I know,
that
it was
might be
sad.
one of the only parades that we haven't had board members in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Elma,
No comments.
well, I think I've commented all I need to comment.
Thank you. I love you.
Because John's gonna cut me off in there. John, do you have anything to
Yes, I make a motion to adjourn.
say? All those in favor? All those in favor, signify by saying.
Oh, I.
It's not the longest meeting we've had, John.
No, I know.
No, it
Not
isn't.
by a long shot.
I know.
It was actually kind of fun. It was, you worked in those soil borings. I mean, really, we were talking about the building, which was very interesting, and I was about to say, well, at least this time we're not talking about soil borings. But soil borings are boring. Thank you, Rosemary. If you talk to Barbara, give her our best.
Okay.
Thank you.
She plans to be out of the hospital shortly.
Yeah,
She does.
yeah, I'm sure she does.